How's everyone doing? I see. Louis, good to have you, my friend.
Niran, good to be here. Thank you.
So let's get this show on the road. Let's see who's in our room. Hey, if you are in the room and if there's any way that you can turn your camera on, Nima always showing up with the
There's
camera
Nima.
on. Nice headphones, girl. You look like you're DJing. Looks awesome. Uh, I said that, and Nima turned her camera right off again. But you know what? Whether your camera is on or off, Lewis and I are going to show up with the best that we got. But if you have your camera on, it is so much easier for us to present. Just because, well, Zoom. I'm a meeting in person guy. I like to shake hands and hug people. Hey, Sean, how are you? Good to see you. And who else do we got in the room here? I thought I saw Eric's here, and I saw Jeremy Porter show up even. Yes,
Uh,
I see the thumbs up from Jeremy. Kelly McKinnon is in here. You're in here twice. I
Couple
don't
new
know why,
faces
but you're
too.
here. Hmm?
Couple new faces as well.
Couple new faces as well. Awesome. Well, welcome everybody. Today, welcome to Real Estate Wealth Lab. Today, we're going to be talking to you about construction and getting a better use out of the property, because in today's real estate market, the ability to cash flow properties has become increasingly difficult. And one of the ways that we do that is to add extra units or some way of increasing our rental income using the same asset. We're going to be looking at this at a high level. Now, I do want to go over a couple housekeeping. So if it's all right, team, I'm just going to share my screen for a minute. Let's see here. There we go. So I'm going to share my screen and let's. Can you see the welcome screen?
Ready to go. Yep.
Can you see it? Good.
Oh yeah.
We're all good to go then. All right. Well, welcome everybody. Um, a couple of things. We are looking to gain insights into proven strategies for identifying and converting properties with immense profit potential. We do this, I do this quite a bit, but I'm kindergarten compared to Lewis and Kyle. We do this quite a lot. Get exclusive access to us and other experts within our group. And we're going to have a quick question and answer period at the end to answer any questions that you might have. These are the two out of these three guys are the coolest cats in the world. On the left is Lewis, and on the right is Kyle and myself. And as we go through today, we'll introduce ourselves. Couple on our team on Real Estate Wealth Lab, we've got a really wide base. Everybody from Vincent Sundar, Ken Klanaftikas, who's our operations guy, Richard Dolan, Wendy Bradley, and Rob Shada. So we make up a massive team. But today, this is what we are doing. Couple things. Okay, legal disclaimer. We do not provide any investment advice. What we do is provide forward-looking information. Any information that expresses market predictions or expectations or beliefs, plans, projects, anything like that, you really need to consult a qualified and licensed professional. So take a picture of this disclaimer. In other words, this is just what we're all investors and we're sharing what we're doing in present time. We do ask you to ask questions, say hi, engage, share any feedback and thoughts. All number of you are in the real estate field and you're trying to build your business, and you know how tough it can be. If there's some way that we can improve, we can help better or show up in a stronger way, let us know. Just be respectful, courteous, and kind. One thing we ask you not to do in our room is to solicit or sell anything. All right. Take a screenshot of this or take a picture of this. Deeper dive. What we're doing today is going to be at a high level. After this, for our members only, on Tuesday, I believe it's next week on October 31st. Sorry, on Halloween night. Woo! 7 p.m. We're going to be having a deeper dive into what we're doing in real estate, how to convert a property. We're going to go more into the weeds and really start answering some specific questions. If you are a member, listen up. If you are a member of REWL, this is your opportunity to show up with your exact problem that you're trying to solve when it comes to converting your properties. So if you have a property that you have bought or you're looking to convert in some way, send it to us ahead of time, perhaps, and with a question if you have it. And what we can do is we can try and address that question in real time. That meeting is for members, and we really take that seriously. Here's our info on how to get in touch with us, info@realestatewealthlab.com. And you can also follow us on Instagram or Facebook. If you scan this, you get a 3-day trial, but we'll talk about this again later on. Now, I'm going to come out of this screen share. There we go. All right. Louis, how are we doing?
Wonderful. I think we're ready to dive in, Niran.
We are totally ready to dive in. Now, when it comes to looking at a property, Louis, bring me up to speed. What do you do? So you walk into a house or a building or an apartment building, or knowing Louis, it could even be a piece of land. And you walk into it and go, what's the first thing that confronts you when you walk in? What's the questions a guy like you ask yourself?
Okay, so before I even walk in, I'm going to assess the area.
Okay.
I'm not even going to wipe my feet on the doormat yet. I'm going to assess the area. I'm going to check out the neighbors. I'm going to see what the blocks around the property look like. If it's a new property, if it's an area I'm familiar with, maybe it's a step that I can kind of bypass and just get right into the nuts and bolts of the particular property I'm looking at. But if it's a new area, then I want to assess the neighborhood, kind of get a gauge of how many renters might be in the area. What I've done this at least 2 or 3 times before. I will find out what day the mail comes by, and I'll speak to the mailman. And they're it's somewhat private information, but they can at least kind of bring him a coffee, and he'll be able to share a little bit of information on what the dynamics of the street and the neighborhood are. And I find that's a great way to get a base of folks.
You are giving away $1 million ideas here. Talking to the mailman. Keep going.
It works. It works. So all I'm saying is assess the neighborhood and try to identify what type of market you're in. You can read about it and you can read stats, but things are changing so quickly these days. Speak to someone that's on the ground on a daily basis and dealing with people on a daily basis, and that'll give you a better picture of where things are at in the neighborhood, and maybe what homes are potentially vacant or what home seems to have mail change on a frequent basis. That might be another property that you may want to potentially knock on the door and find out if they're looking to sell it. So that's one thing I like to do. And then once I do get into the property.
So hold on, pause there for just a minute. Oh, Kyle just entered our room. Kyle, come on in. Great to have you. Yes. We can have you on the perfect. Welcome.
Kyle, we're just talking about harassing mailmen.
You're harassing the mail.
Sounds great.
So Louis, Kyle, welcome. Before we go any further, I want to come back to what you just said, Louis, because I think it's crucial. But before we do that, I think, we kind of just start talking because we know each other and our team and our members know us. But I know that this being an event that other people are allowed to come in on, they don't know us. So Louis, can you take 30 seconds before you go any further? Tell us who you are. What's your superhero power?
Superhero power. Wow. Okay. So my name is Ioannou. I am the chief advisor in REWL. I've been in construction for just over 23 years now, and I've been investing in real estate in the Ontario marketplace for 12. I focus on value adds, single family condos. I've recently gotten into the multifamily market as well. I've done commercial flips and construction related. I've done a lot of big projects, a lot of commercial stuff, a lot of large multifamily, and a lot of large commercial mixed use residential type properties. So I'm well versed in a lot of different types of development. And some of my strengths I feel are great negotiating, risk mitigation, planning, project management. So that's just a little bit about what I'm doing. And recently I'm working on a 12plex in the Niagara area. So that's what I have going on at the current moment.
Excellent. Kyle?
Yeah, great question. Thanks, Niran. And thanks again for seeing everyone. My apologies for being late and my tardiness, but I was at another real estate event with some of the other team members. So I've been trying to juggle a million things at once, but I'm grateful that I'm able to jump on the call with you guys. So for those that don't know me in the room, my name is Kyle Guthro. I am a real estate investor. I'm a performance communication coach. I specialize in helping companies, organizations, individuals, entrepreneurs scale and grow their businesses in and outside of real estate. I've been a real estate investor for, 16 years. Bought my first rental property in 2007. I've, similar to Louis, I've done kind of everything in real estate. I don't know if it's a blessing or a curse, but fix and flip, buy and hold, construction. I have done multifamily, sixplex, construction financing, raised money for construction financing. I've lent my own money out. Anything that's real estate, I've pretty much touched it in one way, shape, or another. So hoping to add a lot of value to the call tonight.
Absolutely, Kyle. Thank you very much. I know that you do, and you've added, both of you have added tremendous value to me. Whenever I get in trouble, you guys are the people I call. So my name is Niran Kulathungam. I am the Chief Leadership Officer for Real Estate Wealth Lab. And here's what, so I've been in the real estate investment game for over 2 decades. I've been in the leadership development process, or helping leaders develop, for over 4 decades. So what I do is I do everything from single family conversions to multifamily. I run a fund which is an LPGP structure. I do apartment building conversions, but really my superpower is being able to look at a person, figure out where they're stuck, what their superpower is, align them to get them moving. So if you have a few properties under your belt and you're stuck, we're your people. Or if you've got a group or you've got a big portfolio and you're just struggling to make everything balance, we can connect the dots between living a meaningful, lit up life and business and work and entrepreneurship. And we show up a lot in the real estate space because that's where we ourselves invest in. Okay. Good. That being said, Louis, I want to, Kyle, when you joined us, we were looking at the question I asked Louis, and I'll ask you as well. What do you do when you show up at a property, or what's the first thing that confronts you when you walk into a house, an apartment building, or a piece of land? It could be a piece of land and with a ravine lot, and you're going, what do I do here? What's the first question you ask? And Louis talked about, before he even, I think the word you used, Louis, was that before you even rub your feet on the doormat or something like that.
That's it.
Is that it? That's right. You talk to the postman, which is a brilliant move. Now, if you are listening to, if you're looking for a property, one of the ways that you can check out the neighborhood, I've found, is also Google Maps. Just get into Google and go for a walk. But the postman move is really a high-end move, because how many postmen do you know, or postwomen, that get approached by somebody going, can you give me some advice on what's going on in the neighborhood? Like, nobody asked them, but they are knocking on every door. Kyle, what do you do when you're confronted or walk into an opportunity? What's the first question that you're confronted with?
Before I even set foot on that property, this is what I will teach a lot of real estate investors. You need to be hyper observant. Write that word down, hyper observant, because it can save you or cost you a lot of money. Let me explain. So when I tell my clients, investors, say, hey, before you even set foot near that property, when you're driving there, I want you to start paying attention to the vehicles that are on the street, the vehicles that are in the driveways. Pay attention to the landscaping. Is in the winter, is the snow shoveled? Look at the roofs. Roofs say a big story, because as roofing contracts get more and more expensive, people that will neglect their roofs, they'll start to show. The shingles don't lie. And just start paying attention to the exterior of the properties in the neighborhood, not your property. Don't worry about yours just yet. Worry about the neighborhood. And here's the other thing. You've heard this one before. Drive it during the day and also drive it at night. The other thing I do, not so much with the postman or postwoman, but I'm an extrovert. I have no problem stopping in the street, going up to someone saying, hey, see, you're walking a dog. Dog owners, I'm one of them. We know a lot about our neighborhood because we walk it a lot with our pet. They ask them a question. How do you like living here? What don't you like about the neighborhood? What do you think you could see improving? But if you do hear negative things, that sometimes is a good thing, because it could be two things that are happening. You'll get your answers that you don't want to invest there. Or the second thing is, if it's starting to gentrify. I've done a lot of flips where they were in neighborhoods that they were sketchy. But guess what? I was the catalyst, or someone else was the catalyst that started the movement in that 2-block radius. And guess what? I'll give you an example. I had a house in downtown Hamilton, just off Burlington Street in the West End. Pretty rough neighborhood.
We've all been there.
Pretty rough neighborhood. Not gonna lie. However, actually, I'll share a funny story real quick. Within 2 weeks of us renovating the property, we hear this loud bang. I'm like, what the hell was that? I go outside, 4 doors down, entire SWAT team kicking down a door with a battering ram. I'm like, look to my business partner. I go, what the hell neighborhood did we just invest in? But in that time, you know what? 4 other investors, because we were the catalyst that started it, 4 other investors bought on that exact same street because they saw the potential. We made a good profit, and investors go rinse and repeat. So what it did is it started turning over that specific street and that neighborhood.
Yes.
And the final conclusion of that story is that we invited everybody from the neighborhood when we were doing the open house to sell it. Guys, come here. You guys pick your next neighbor. We're empowering them. But most importantly, the next door neighbor who followed us through the journey and was an absolute treat to work beside, because she never called the city on us, she actually started crying at the end going, oh my God, you just motivated me to show what I could do to my house. 1, and 2, the neighbors that we bought the house off were not very good neighbors. And she was like so happy that I was going to bring in like a high quality AAA client to buy that property. So as an investor and as a flipper, that made me feel so good that I was not just impacting one family, but actually a neighborhood. And I think we have to remind ourselves as investors that, guys and gals, we have a lot of opportunity to really transform some things just outside of just a generic house.
Kyle, that is so crucial and important, because in a world where we have lost our sense of meaning and everything just becomes a job that you do, you've actually not just changed a house or a neighbor, but you've been a catalyst and initiated change on a street level. Do you know there are entire city councils that meet free trying to change a street, and they don't get far? So, well done. Hey, Jaydeep, nice to see you, buddy.
Niran, just before we keep jumping in, Lalo, I hope I'm saying that right, just asked a question. I just want to address it just before we go on to the next subject. How do you make sure you were Bringing a high power neighbor. I don't know. Can you maybe elaborate that? I'm not sure if I understand that question in its entirety. But maybe while that person is typing up potentially the rephrasing of the question, what I will say is that um, if you go into a high caliber neighborhood, what you'll sometimes find, two things you want to do: buy the worst house on the best street, or buy a house that's on an up and coming street. Both can produce potential, but the latter, you definitely need to do more due diligence. And hopefully there's some comps in the neighborhood. I also tell people and warn investors, don't over renovate. I'm guilty of that. I'm the one that wants to literally make it. I'll even renovate behind the walls, just knowing that it's done absolutely perfect. It does cost a little bit more, but knowing that I'm delivering a superior product makes it all better. Oh, sorry, not Lalo. You mentioned that your neighbors did not like the neighbor you bought the house from, and they were happy because you were going to bring a high caliber buyer. Yes, so this neighborhood did have some riffraff. Not all the neighbors liked us. Imagine dumping a 30-foot bin in front of the house on a street that was very tight as it was, which we had a permit for. So it's a matter of, you've got to kind of coach some of your neighbors, be very friendly. I will tell them, please respect the rules. Do not be cutting a 2x4 off a chop saw in a garage at 10 o'clock at night. I know you're on a tight timeline, but man, that noise travels. And the quickest ways to get shut down is not complying to the rules that are set out by the city for permits. That's what I was kind of getting at, is just be neighborly, but also don't let the neighborhood push you around. Because trust me, there was times where we were trying to redo our fence on the one side and the neighbor wanted nothing to do with it. He's basically told us to F off, and I ain't paying squat. So we ended up building him a new fence for him getting it for free. But we need to get it done anyways for the project. So just
Kyle,
be cognizant of that.
Thank you for that, and that's really crucial. I know both Kyle and I invest in Hamilton, and it can be fun times. So a couple of things I want to underline that you've heard from Lewis and Kyle. I call it the PD move. PD, policeman, talk to the cops. Sorry, talk to the postman. Talk to the dog walkers. Thirdly, PD stands for police department. I always talk to cops. I'll stop and talk to the cops, and they won't tell you what the bad house is, but they'll go, but if you ask the question correctly, if you say, so what kind of calls do you get on this street? They will tell you. And so I found that those to be really, really valuable. I want to shift gears right now to not just the now that you walked into the property, you've looked at a property, now you've decided that you're going to renovate. Or you know what, Lewis, I'm going to throw it back to you. What's the next step for you once you've been confronted by your first question? What's the next thing that you do?
For me, it'll be a combination of two things. I'll get into the property and I'll identify what type of renovation is required just based on an inspection of the home. And I'll look at comps as well to see what has gone on in the area and where that's going to kind of land a renovation budget generally, and see if I can, keep it within budget. One thing I'm guilty of is, Kyle mentioned it too, and Kyle, Niran, you probably know what I'm going to say as well. There's not been one project I've been on that I've been on budget for. I love to spend money on things because what I do, I like to see myself in the property. And if I can finish it to a standard that's appealing to me, it's a good exit strategy, first of all, because if it's a property that doesn't end up renting or selling for something that is favorable, I'll move in if I have to. And I want to be comfortable. But I always find myself spending more money on things like, Kyle mentioned behind the wall. If you find something, and if you're in this business long term, you're not going to neglect things behind the wall that could be potential harm for someone. You have to fix it. So things do come up. But putting extra finishes in or spending more money on whatever it is, flooring or fixtures, sometimes that helps bring in just a little bit more money. And I've personally experienced that in different types of real estate markets as well, where if I'm either selling or renting, it'll make that difference between other comps that are renovated or renting out now, because I'll look that much better with my higher quality finishes. So, and builder quality doesn't stand up to what I'm doing in properties either, especially if you're in a place like downtown Toronto, for example. If you're just going in and finding that pencil baseboard and have to rent something from builder or new construction that's $3,800 a month, for example, and you can walk into a properly renovated condo for the same price, maybe a few $100s more, you're going to find buyers that appreciate that are going to go for the better finishes.
So I think that all three of us are guilty of, Danielle's on the call and she's a realtor I work with quite a bit. I know, Kyle, you work with her as well, but she will often joke and say that when I walk into a property, oh, the wall needs paint, let's rip the wall down, let's rebuild. But I'm actually, what's interesting is that I meet guys that just want to paint over all the problems and sell it. I'm not that guy. And the two of you are not those people. I think it's because we're not driven just by the dollar amount. It goes to who we are in this space, how we show up. It speaks about us as individuals.
We're not just riding a market cycle. You've been in the industry for 20 years. Kyle, you're hedging 20 years as well. I'm just over a decade. We're here to stay. And it's just, when you get down to it, it's a very small community. So the last thing you want to do is be selling properties that are undermined in some condition. Right?
Absolutely.
And for me, just like, just off to riff off that point is, again, we're also seasoned real estate investors. And me personally, I always do two tests. I call the Globe and Mail test. So if someone were to write about me in a negative connotation, what would that do to my last name's reputation, my family's reputation? Because my brothers and my parents are also, I've got them into real estate investing as well. And last thing I want is to be that landlord or that business owner that's slammed all over social media because I cut a corner. And so I do my smoke alarm verifications every single 6 months to make sure, because last thing I want is anyone getting hurt in one of my properties, even though they may have caused a fire. So the same thing, if I'm renovating a property and I open a wall up and there's knob and tubers, aluminum, or maybe knob and tubers bags because you've got to replace it, but shit, there might be some aluminum. Some guys might be like, does it meet code? It's fine. I'm like, no, that is a thing that could really devastate this project or this family that's going to buy this product. I need to replace that. It's just sleeping at night. That's just my conscience. I know some people are different, but I'll cut a corner. You know where I also cut a corner then? If structurally, plumbing or electrical, then guess what? Something gets pulled off down the road. You know what? Instead of quartz, they're getting granite. Instead of top of the line appliances, they're getting mid-grade appliances. So for me, it's doing those calculations on really finding out what's the most important to me. And I truly believe a quality product that looks good as well will supersede and pass the generic ones. You need to make yourself stand out from the rest. So just take that little bit left. And to Louis' point, I find this with a lot of newbie flippers or investors. They just don't allocate enough. Like, guys, I'm telling you, guys and gals, you can watch HGTV all you want. Just don't take their financial advice from them, please, because they're in different markets. They're in Texas where labor is super cheap. And they're like, how the hell do they do this renovation for $60,000?
Are you telling me I can't do a reno for $60,000 within half an hour?
No,
that's the time frame.
So I see them get caught a lot because I've had the great benefit of renovating client properties, but also doing flips. And I've seen budgets literally balloon because homeowners or investors are like, well, we want this. We want the wall ripped out. We want that done. And I explain to them, you touch a wall that's load bearing, minimum $5,000. They're like, wait, what? Once you get the engineering, the I-beam, the structure, the temporary wall to hold up the permanent wall, it's just, but the new investors don't know that because they may not be experienced enough. And then the other thing, the reason why I always say the cash is your friend in these games. Prime example, if you take anything away from this, if you're going to start a project, please budget at least 30%. The reason why, we just saw this happen 2 years ago when the price of lumber went from $3 to $9. And my framing went from $20,000 to $80,000 on a job. And it almost ruined the project. So those things are going to happen. Just be prepared for them.
So let's talk a bit about budget. Keep in mind, folks, that today this is a really high-level call. The in-depth one where we'll be looking at numbers will be on a different date. So let's, Kyle, you brought up budget. Let's talk about budget. So you walk into a property, you figured out what you want to do. There's this term, new investors say things that they haven't, good for them, but I'm going to contradict some stuff. When you walk into property and new investors will go, well, I want the highest and best use for this property. Well, highest and best use for a property may not be within your scope of expertise to handle. I have properties where
not even scope. They might not even fit the neighborhood.
They may not fit the neighborhood.
You might be over renovating for a neighborhood. And I've got caught doing that once. It hurts. You're expecting to get your money back. Yeah.
Just because you can doesn't mean you should. Right? So you've decided on a scope of work. And by scope of work, I mean, you're decided that, let's say you're going to gut the place and convert it into a duplex. I'm just starting one of those projects right now. Let's say that's a simple one to look at. How do you go about setting the budget? Just high level. Kyle, why don't you go first on this? Because I know that you're really good at budget and management on a day-to-day basis. And then Louis.
So typically, depending on who I'm walking through the property with, this is where I will explain having an individual or a contractor that understands every aspect of business. You've met some GCs that are really strong, or they used to be a drywaller. No knock against drywallers. They used to be a drywaller, and now they're getting into GC. They don't know what plumbing costs. They don't know what electric costs. They don't know what windows cost, but they know drywall, which is great. And I often tell people, as a GC, you need to have a holistic approach. You can't get in too deep into the level of knowing every intricacies. You have to rely on your trades. But after doing it enough, you are familiar with, hey, a panel upgrade, 200 amp, is going to be about $3,000 just for the panel.
Just
one panel. You know that a 4x8 window, depending on the window manufacturing, is around $500 to $800. You count how many windows are, and you can do some quick math. So if you were unfamiliar to this world, you could go on YouTube, you can go on some websites and just start asking, hey, what's a window cost? What's a faucet cost? What's a bathtub cost? Figure out what your materials are. Where you're gonna really struggle with is what I call the hard materials. Lumber, drywall, flooring can be a little tricky. Those ones are a lot harder to measure. Even as an experienced, when I was doing a lot of flips, I still couldn't go in and go, how many board feet are there of drywall? But my drywall guy could literally in 5 minutes tell me, all right, it's 80,000 worth of drywall. I'm like, how did you figure that out that quickly? Well, it's just this room by this by, and it was a quick math for them. But that's what they do day in and day out. So for a lot of the investors, it's going to be hard to figure out what the cost per foot is for paint, cost per foot for drywall. If you can start asking trades what those things do cost, you'll be able to familiarize yourself, or just bring in a really, really good GC. Now, the other thing that I'm always looking for is go after your high value items first. Focus on them. We all know this because we're in real estate. We've heard it before. Kitchens and bathrooms make the biggest impact, which is true. Before you start tearing down every single wall to make it open concept, focus on the kitchens and bathrooms first. Obviously, open concept is a great feature.
Right.
I'm not sure if it's always worth the expense, especially if the house and drywall is already in good shape. It can be a very, very costly expense, but it can also reap some good rewards, especially if the house is really chopped up. The other ones you do want to look out for is like big expenses: furnace, air conditioner, windows, roof. Those ones can kill you because those are the ones that you're like, hey, didn't know we need to replace a roof. $8,000, $10,000. Furnace needs to go. HVAC, $5,000. Like those are the ones that can hit you hard. You can get away with, oh, paint cost me an extra $1,000 or $2,000. So
Perfect.
obviously, the one thing I will tell this to people: please hire professionals. Do not hire Joe's Electrical. Ask to see his master's license that he's licensed electrician. Trust me.
And
People are
sure.
like, licensed and insured, WSIB.
Yes.
Don't get caught with it because it will fall on you as the homeowner or the investor. God forbid someone gets hurt on your site or something happens. You are ultimately the owner of that property. So that just kind of gives you a glimpse into what I'm looking for. But when I'm walking through the property, I have a very, very critical eye. But I'm also very, very familiar with that world. I can even see when a builder cuts a corner. It's like, yeah, why didn't you cut the trim on a 45-degree miter? Why'd you do a 90-degree?
So Kyle, what some key takeaways from what you've said? One is go after the big ticket items first, figure out what those are, and budget for those accordingly. For budget prices itself, get clear on what the numbers are, or even better, hire a GC, a good GC. Third, your trades need to be really have the proper licenses and the insurance to do that. One of the things I've noticed in the real estate space is that somebody who's renovated their own house, maybe done a bathroom here or something like that, or not done a lot of reno, just little things, they'll come to you and they'll say, oh, you can't be spending that much on that. You can get it done a lot cheaper. You take a higher risk when it is too cheap. And if you are a professional investor, you do not want to do that, because when that baby comes home to roost, you're in trouble. When something goes wrong, you get in trouble. Lewis, Kyle, anything for me before I go to Lewis? No, Lewis, go for it, buddy. What's on your mind? How do you handle the budget and the numbers?
I think, quite similar to what Kyle has been talking about. I think building a relationship with a set of trades is so critical because they're going to be there right alongside you to give you that pricing and know exactly what it's going to cost to give you the ballpark, especially when things are so volatile. They're in the industry, so they're going to know, has copper gone up 10 or 15%, or has it been stabilized and it's, there's not going to be any jumps in the next 6 months. So, this is what it's going to be for your rental. Things like that are little surprises that you're going to find in markets like we've experienced in the last 3 to 4 years, give or take. But what building relationships is also going to do for you is allow the trades to realize that you're a professional renovator, you're here for the long run, and that's going to reflect on the pricing they give you. Because if you're going to be giving a renovator, a GC, or a sub-trade, 1 or 2 projects a year for as long as you're going to be renovating, that's a very critical, companion to have on your team, because they're going to treat you like a great business client, as opposed to just someone that's renovating and who knows if you're going to see them again. So building that rapport is going to give you access to them whenever you need them. They're going to know you're serious, and their pricing is going to be market pricing. You're not looking for deals. In a pinch, they may be able to help you, but don't look for people and expect deals all the time. GCs and subs don't want to work with people that are looking to undercut them all the time. People run from that. No one wants to work for someone that doesn't want to pay market value. Everyone has to be able to pay their bills. And running GC companies and sub trades, if you're doing it properly with like what Kyle said, it's not cheap. Insurances, there are multiple insurances. WSIB, there are many expenses. So, you know, find out and farm the right trade for you that you're comfortable with, and make sure you're paying them properly, because it will be reciprocated through showing up on your job on time, provided they're professional, showing up on time, getting the job done when you need it done, so your renovation's not lagging, you know, months behind, and now you're incurring extra mortgage costs and holding costs. So those are things to consider too. So get a solid team behind you, and they'll be able to help you put all those budgets together. And as far as a quick thing on materials, if you're new to the game and don't have a lot of experience with different types of materials, try to stay with materials that are in the range of like Home Depots and Lowe's, for example. And I caution against going to different showrooms and high-end places, because you're going to start to spend a fortune on the material, but the labor is a different cost now. If you're going for some type of humbled travertine Italian marble, it needs to be coated and sealed multiple times before you even lay that thing down. So you're going to spend a lot more money on installation, and finding someone that is familiar with installation techniques of foreign material or higher end material, they're getting harder and harder to find, especially folks that are going to spend the time necessary to install it properly. And it's going to increase your budget and increase time on the schedule as well. So if you're looking for a flip and you want to finish it professionally, you can still find great products in the big box stores. It doesn't have to be Home Depot or Lowe's, but what I'm saying is within that range of material, it's going to be reasonably priced. And more often than not, they're going to be materials that'll be reasonably easy and straightforward to install without any, you know, ridiculous techniques or extra materials from other sources that are going to have to be shipped in and take forever.
Yeah. Thank you for that. By the way, sorry, go ahead, Kyle.
I was just going to add to that, because Louis, you and I have been in this business a long time, so it's definitely replaying a lot of things and mistakes that I've made in the past. So I was just taking some notes while you were saying, to all those on the call, please, just so you guys know, Louis, Niran, and I, you can access us whenever you need. Find us at the Real Estate Wealth Lab. Also find us on our socials. I think all of us are our names, but I'll drop it in the chat. Mine's just at Kyle Guthro if you want to hit me a message on Instagram or whatever. What I will say, when you are in the renovation game, speed is your friend. Unless it's your own renovation where you're living through it, then it's not your friend. You don't really care. So pay a little bit more to get things done on time. Why I say this is because it will end up costing you in carrying money down the line, and it will slow other trades down. So time is definitely your friend in the flip business. The other thing, when you are interviewing for trades or GCs or subs trades, pay attention to what vehicles they show up in. Now, I don't want to say paint a picture don't look at a cover of a book, but it does speak volumes. If they show up and their truck is all ratty and it's beat up and there's dents in the side of it, I get it. We're in construction. But that just doesn't show they maybe take care of their tools or their product or their people. That's another thing to kind of look out for. When you are walking through these properties, look for references, look for referrals. But here's another thing. Bring in multiple electricians. They're going to quote you. And guess what you'll learn? I have a pool of electricians that I can reach from that are all in different price points. So I know this guy is going to charge $20,000. This guy will charge $15,000. This guy will charge $10,000. What is the type of flip that I want to correspond? They're all master electricians. Just one sloppy, one slower, one's faster, one's cleaner. One will get it done in a day. So speed is sometimes your friend. Louis, great point on the Home Depot material. The reason why I say that, because I've seen this before where, especially during COVID, there was a lot of supply chain issues. And I remember one of our clients was waiting for her tub from Italy, and it was holding the whole project up. And eventually got to a point that they had to cancel it, lost money on a deposit, and ended up going and buying a tub from Home Depot. I just said, as a real estate investor, you don't want a product, unless it's like a super high-end flip, you don't want a product that if it does break in the future, it's going to be really hard to fix. Go and buy Moen and Delta.
Yeah.
That's it. Don't go buy anything crazy off Amazon or cheap off Amazon, because when those cartridges break on those faucets, they're impossible to find. Spend the money
Yeah.
on Delta, spend the money on
Very good.
Bowen, get it, and then move on. And then that was kind of my
All
riff
right.
point for that.
Naran, there was one
Niran,
question.
you got us too excited. You got us too excited.
Yeah. Before we get to the questions, I'm aware of the.
Okay,
Hold
okay.
on to your question for just a minute. I'm just careful of our time. So here's what I want to do very quickly. Like the two of you are real gangster when it comes to renovating, right? I like Lewis has done over, and I'm going to toot his horn here a little bit, but he's done over not 1 million or 10 million, but 1 billion. That's with the B of construction. That's a lot of cement, man. That's a lot of flooring. That's a lot of drywall. Anyway, here's what I want to do. We are 46 minutes into the call. We have 14 minutes left. Here's what I want to do. I know I can see Nima, you're with us. I can see that you're here. A number of us, I know that once you start listening to people for a period of time, it starts to get a little, woozy in our heads. So what I want to do is I want to stop for 1 minute. I want to show you a reno that I just did right now. And it's not set up for show. It literally, I just got the pictures half an hour before. I'm going to show you some befores. I'm going to show you some afters. Right after that, I want to come in and let's have a question and answer period where you can ask your questions. I know there's a bunch in the chat. Okay. So I'm going to share my screen and let's see where we end up here. Now, this is put together the last second, so it may not. Slideshow from start. There we go. Okay, so just take a look at these pictures. This is a house that I've just finished renovating, and it's on the market. It just hit the market 20 minutes ago. So this is like before, okay? Just take a look at the pictures. I just want to give you an idea of what it looked like before we got done, all right? Now, let me go to 28 Cornwall Road, just listed a few minutes ago. I want to show you, this is what it looks like 2.5 months later. Took me about 10-week rental. We opened it up. There we go. You get the idea of that.
Well done.
Find a little bit of show and tell in the middle of a presentation is helpful. But that's a really simple reno. It wasn't complicated. We just opened up a couple walls and replaced kitchens, flooring, and stuff like that.
And,
Kyle,
and just to add to that,
Mhm.
yeah, just to add to that, when you are flipping, if you're flipping, keep the colors neutral. So many people want to get creative and paint some wild wall. Don't. Just stay in a lane. Remember, you're here to make money. Now, unless you hire a design team, different story. But do keep things neutral.
So here's, before we get to the questions, here's a couple things that I want to add on to what you've said. When I walk into a property, the first thing I do is I look at the outside, what I call the building envelope. Start at the roof, work my way down. These are all things that are high ticket items, windows, roofing, things like that, but they're necessary, but you have to do them, but they don't actually increase your curb appeal or your rents or anything like that. Just foundational. One of the other things I want to add to what you do, and Kyle, you touched on this just now, I always bring in a designer. I have a designer I work with. I've worked with her for about 15 years, and I always bring in a designer because what I find is they are very quick to help me make the property pop and look really nice on a budget. So it doesn't look like a contractor walked down the aisles at Home Depot and chose things off the aisle and put it together. We've all been in houses. You walk in and you go, this looks like a Home Depot special. I really like, and each of us, when we renovate, we do different things. Like for me, lighting is really important. So I'm always looking at how does the light fall? How does it affect the colors? What's the flow? For each of us, we have our own thing. Anyway, I'm going to stop there. If you are joining us, keep in mind this is a high level call. If you want detailed analysis, join us for our paid membership rule call that we'll do on Tuesday, the 31st, where we will look at detail into specific parts of renovating. And if you are a rule member and you've got a property that you want to renovate and you want to send that to us beforehand, we can actually take a look at it in real time and give you our thoughts on it. Okay. So what questions do we got going on? Who's got a question? What is there stuff in the chat that one of you guys can?
There was one in the chat that I want to address. It has
Okay.
to do with material and kind of procurement. So the question was, do you like to purchase some material and provide it to your trades or GC, or do you let the GC buy? I want to say for most material, leave it up to the trades to purchase. And I'll tell you why. You don't have to rent a pickup truck or something ridiculous to start hauling stuff around and taking up a new career of moving material around the city. Let them, and talk to them before. If they're going to start putting points and surcharges on the material because they're picking up and purchasing, identify that beforehand. It's worth the money. Okay. Number 3, I have not met a homeowner or even most investors, to be honest. It's a nightmare trying to order fixture, especially plumbing. Like on the Home Depot website, an owner will tell you, hey, I found this great fixture. I'm going to pick it up. No problem. Guess what? The trim sold separately. The valve body sold separately. There's one box that shows up with some shower arm in it. Everything else is missing, but that is in there in the garage sitting for 3 months until the plumber's ready to install it. Then he opens the box and nothing's there to install. Now the thing you find out on the Home Depot website is 3 months back order. This happens all the time. And lastly, give the GC and the trade the responsibility to procure that stuff. It's not your problem now. So when you set up schedules and dates of completion, everything's on them. They're not waiting for you to pick up and mess around with some kind of thing that needs to be there for their installation. Give them full responsibility, and believe me, you'll have enough to manage. You don't need to be going around picking up material, bouncing around from store to store.
Now, I will riff and maybe not contradict Louis, but add to it. It's that, you know what, for small fixtures that you could get at Home Depot, some homeowners, some investors like this process. So let them. If they want to go buy the Moen fixture and they enjoy it, guys, go buy it. But if they're like, oh, I picked out a tub, I can't get it. Can you now get it delivered? It's like, well, yeah, I'm going to charge you delivery fee. And then just to also just make sure you have the conversation before you buy things from from Home Depot or any other supplier. The reason why I say that, there's so many times that I've said, clients, I have no problem with you going and picking the product, but I will deal with the delivery, the supply, and the payment thereof, because then I can schedule it, get it delivered, and now I'm not having to be a middleman between you and the showroom. But here's the other thing: a lot of designers that we work with have pretty deep discounts with some of the showrooms. So I tell this to clients: you can go pay retail. Go ahead. That tile that's $10 a foot, my designer gets it for $6. So yes, you're going to pay a markup from me. It's still going to be cheaper than retail.
Right. So when you're speaking, Kyle, you're also talking about homeowners going and choosing it because you're in that business. What about if you're an investor? Would you still recommend the same thing?
It depends on what type of investor. If I know they're cost conscious and they're trying to save money, with small fixtures, I'm okay with it. Like door handles, trim kits for doors, faucets, tub spouts. I'm okay with small things like that. But when it's like, I'm trying to think of like what's another example. I want them pick their appliances. Go to Lowe's, Home Depot, whoever. Pick your appliances. but it's going to be on you to figure out the delivery and deal with them. I'm going to tell you, I've told this to investors that want to be part of this. If the things that you procure causes delays in my schedule, you will be paying for the delays, not me.
See,
I
good.
charge them.
Good. I
Yeah.
charge them.
Yeah, I charge them for the delays.
So for me, I do a lot of coaching and partnerships, like joint venture partnerships, where I've got partners that are involved. My partners all know that they do not have the ability. Now, this is different for me. This is just the way I operate. They actually don't have any authority to make any choices in the renovation process. I can take things to them and go, what do you like? But 99% of the time, I'm not. Because I've found that when I do this every day, all day, at recess, before school, while you're sleeping. When you have somebody who's just starting off, I need decisions to be made fast.
The problem
Right.
too with the problem too with finishing is that it's all subjective, right?
Absolutely.
Like, so that you start, yeah, you're right. It gets out of control. So delegating the management to one person, 100%.
That's why I use a designer.
And the other thing, again, what I will just riff off, and it was just so funny to witness and watch this, newbie investors that would come in and do flips, they took forever to make decisions. And it's like, team, they're white doors on a kitchen. Who cares? Like, make the decision, move on. Like, time is your friend. And too many people just cannot, for some reason, when you're over saturated as much as we are in choice, you don't think we don't have a lot of choice? Trust me. Go into Home Depot and look at the hardware section for door handles.
It's double the size.
Cupboard hand. It's unbelievable. Pretty soon they're going to have a whole aisle full of it.
So thank you, guys. I just want to be conscious of our time and our commitments. What is the, is there any other questions we need? 3 minutes left. Put your hand up or raise it if you've got a question, or throw it in the chat. If you put your hand up, I'll bring it right into the call.
If it's your first time, try to partner with someone. If you can, find a mentor or
all day,
coach,
every day.
right?
Yeah. So Morley asked the question, how do you know that there is enough margin after we pay original price and then our rental costs? Great question.
Good question.
Great question. So what you want to do is, obviously you need to factor in the realtor fees after you go to resell this property. Just remember, you are going to be paying tax on this flip. Make sure you talk to a savvy real estate investor accountant. The reason why I say that is because they could tread that fine line between capital gain and pure income. And the reason why I say that is because pure income is 100% taxed. Capital gain is 50% taxed. I'm not an accountant. I don't pretend to be. So please just take this as opinion, not feedback, not advice. But I will say, watch out for those hidden costs because they creep up afterwards. And then I will often tell people, this is your first reno, allocate a 30% contingency. Industry standards typically around 10. For newbie people, I tell them 30%, because I'm telling you, you will quickly blow your budget out of the water. Things will catch up to you.
Lewis?
Quickly on taxation, I've been on multiple flips, and some flips are not taxed. If they're small enough, you will not be taxed on it with HST. If there's, and again, speak to your professional legal team and your accountants. There's some projects, if you do over a certain amount of removal of drywall and demolition, and the project is big enough, it will be subject to HST, and you will pay that if you don't put it in the price. So that's something to consider.
And even little environmental rebates. Like I got
that too.
Huge kickbacks from environmental rebates. People are like, why did you do spray foam instead of regular fiberglass? It's like $6,000 more. I go, yeah, because the rebate gave me 9,000 back. So I made 3,000.
Yeah.
So it's all these little tips and tricks. You know what we should, oh God, the reason why I get so excited, I could talk about this conversation for hours on end.
We could do an entire course on this.
I know I could. Just man, you just even on rebates. Here's the checklist I use. Here are the questions you should ask your trades. Oh my God, like we could do this for
So,
days.
I've got an apartment buildings, a couple buildings right now, and what we found out is that by adding air conditioning using heat pumps, there's a rebate, and it qualifies us for CMHC financing.
Now, I'm just
Even
curious,
though-
just with people in the audience, because we don't see a lot of you. So maybe in the chat, would you all be open to us doing another call similar to this, but a little bit maybe deeper dive into
We are
the
doing
construction world? But I'm just curious. I'd love to see, like, if you want to just say right yes. Okay, we're seeing a lot of yeses. So, okay, clearly this is a topic that people want to talk about, hear about.
Throwing up the board.
And I think it's not getting enough attention out there in the space. Everyone's so quick to tell you where to invest, what to buy, how to invest, how much returns you should be getting. But no one's really talking about the nitty-gritty details of construction, because it can get ugly.
Not only that, but in today's market too, which is the most volatile for construction and flips, it can still be done, but you better know what you're doing and have that plan. And you, as a beginner, this is not the market to be diving into.
All right.
By yourself.
Our time has come. I want to be conscious of our commitments. So thank
right.
you very much, Kyle and Lewis, for your expertise.
Niran, why are you being a party pooper? I'm just getting started.
I know you are.
I love this topic.
I could talk for hours too, my friend. But
and we're actually all really good at flipping and renovating, as you can see.
Yeah.
And then just maybe one last question for the group. Would you be interested in seeing like some of the flips we've actually done? Maybe diving in, running through numbers, seeing before and after case studies. We can more than share some of them. Okay, yeah, we're seeing yeses. Okay, cool.
Who wants to? I have another question. Who wants to come out and help us on our flips?
Bring a hammer,
we'll pay you in beer and pizza. We'll pay you in beer and pizza.
That's how we make up in this market for our expenses.
Yeah. Hey man, you want guys to stay on site? Give them free food.
Well, here's a question. One last question. What is that? How many of you would be interested in an actual, say, a 12-week course on how to renovate safely in this environment, with actual showing up on job sites as well?
Yeah, good question.
Put yes in the comments if you are. And you know what, guys and gals, what we're actually adding as well, what we can teach you and show you, you can do on your own personal properties as well.
Yes.
And I say this because I've renovated a lot of my own personal properties and saved a boatload of money. And I've seen some people that have never picked up a hammer before. You know what? They still don't know how to hit a nail, but at least they now know how to have the conversation with their trades and look a hell of a lot smarter and save. Man, Louis, Niran, you know I get so excited about this. We could literally do a 2-day call on just how to negotiate with trades.
Mm-hmm.
I could show you how to save 20% off what you're paying in retail, how to speak to these trades.
Yep.
Well, it's great seeing everybody. Kelly McKinnon, nice to see your face. I see you, Rose. With
boy
and Jaydeep as always, and Nima. I don't know who else. If you don't have your camera on, I'm not calling you out because I don't want to embarrass you. Ooh.
But I would say this to all of you. We've dropped our socials in there. Follow the Real Estate Wealth Lab. Follow Louis. Follow Niran. Follow me.
Yeah.
You got
ask
questions?
Us some questions.
Ask us questions. We're here to help. If you guys want, take a picture of this, tag us. We'll repost it. We're all about giving back, because the last thing I want is to hear a horror story that a GC ripped you off, or someone stiffed you out of a job, someone stole from you, or that your budget doubled because you weren't paying attention to the project.
Yeah.
Right.
Remember, leave it to your GC. You got a full-time job,
We've got
family and friends
galore. You know, one of my first major renos, I had the police call me and tell me that I should be mindful because the guy who painted the house, he did a terrible job. So my GC actually fired him. The painter said that he left messages saying that he was coming with the chainsaw to cut my front deck down. So I called my wife and I said, if somebody shows up in a blue and white truck, let the dog out. She goes, why? I said, let the dog out. She'll take care of business. I've got a guard dog, a German Shepherd. So, anyway, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for your time, especially on a Tuesday night. We are Real Estate Wealth Lab. Follow us, and most importantly, if this is a space that you are seriously looking at investing and playing in, join us. Don't just stand on the sidelines. If my team, if Annalisa, if you could just throw in the chat the trial that we have, a free trial that you can join up on, just join up. If you want to make millions of dollars, you got to spend some dollars to get there. That's the truth. Thank you so much. Any last parting words, gentlemen?
Niran, when is that the follow-up call from for next week? Is it Thursday next week?
There's October
31st.
Yeah.
Excellent. Okay. Very good.
Just thank you everyone for joining. We're grateful for all of you. Again, I apologize that I was late and now I'm hanging out in a coffee shop, but hey, that's the beauty of real estate.
We got you.
You'll soon learn too. You got to do it everywhere. Everywhere is an office.
All right. Thank you, everybody, so much. I'm grateful to be part of your lives for tonight. Goodbye.
Take care.